Split Happens. Episode 2 is all about the kids. We want not only you, but the children to be able to navigate through divorce with at least, some reverence of good memories and a smile on their face.
I'm Jay Henderlight. I'm a board certified marital and family law attorney, and this is everything I know about what your kid wants you to know when you're getting divorced.
Split Happens, a podcast sponsored by Sasso Guerrero and Henderlight, explores the emotional and legal challenges of divorce, offering insight and real-world advice to help families navigate change with clarity, compassion, and resilience.
Hello, everybody. I'm meteorologist Katie Garner, and this is...
I'm Jay Henderlight. I'm a board certified marital and family law attorney at Sasso Guerrero and Henderlight, and we are Split Happens.
This is Split Happens, baby, because split happens. We're here today to kind of combat the nuances of divorce, right? People hear divorce and they get combative or they get emotional, and I get it because it's an emotional thing. But what you're here for as a board certified attorney is to really explain to people being a lawyer is a lot different than what people think. And there's one component of divorce that we have really been wanting to touch on. Because, we can sit here and talk about business logistics all day. That's not why we got a podcast. I don't think so. The kids, the children. How many families do we know with kids who are struggling or have gotten divorced? A lot.
And we're saying divorce, but so many families never get married. Mm-hmm. So many people have children and they never even get married. So it's really custody. Almost all of what I do is custody, and it's contested custody for lots of different reasons. But generally speaking, it's because parents are so afraid of what's going to happen to their children that they sometimes will get so mired down in their fears about all these bad things that can happen that they sometimes lose sight of what's actually happening with their kids while they're going through the process.
They get so upset. Some have to take to the bed with depression. Some have to just, you got to just think about it, and you don't really even see the child in it. And that's not to anybody's fault. It's a traumatic time. But we were talking about seeing the child because that's your specialty. You know how to see the child. In fact, I want you to talk a little bit quickly about, you are one, if not the only lawyer that's had experience in getting children out of really bad homes.
So my specialty has always been, at least in the last few years, high conflict custody. And it's high conflict because one or both of the parents is doing something they shouldn't be doing. And probably the case I'm the most proud of was one where a father was actually physically harming his children in order to prevent them from having a relationship with their mother, which was a way to get back at her. And that's a situation that I think most people, at least early on in the process, are so afraid is going to happen to them that it causes more anxiety or more fear than anything else.
Right.
And, children are really our lifeblood. I've got kids, you've got Kevin, the dogs, fur babies are...
We're not blood by,
Fur babies are children too. I don't want to minimize that. I say it jokingly, but it really is true. I've got 2 dogs too, and some days I would probably care more about what happens to them than my own son, but kidding, Balin. But children really go to the core of who we are and how we view ourselves. And because of that, whenever your child's life is somewhat in flux or in turmoil, that creates a lot of fear, and that fear can create all kinds of different concerns that may be real, may not be real, but it makes it hard to really figure out what's going on.
It does, and we were talking a little bit about before we came on today, in divorce, and you have these beautiful children, and then you get lost in the divorce and you're angry and you're sad. You both made that incredible child. It is the 2 best versions of you in one. So I think when there's fighting and there's animosity and you use the child, even accidentally, it almost ruins who that child is destined to grow up to be, because they are seeing things in a whole new light, and it's hard and it hurts. And I think as parents, and again, I am not married, but I have friends that are divorced and I see how they handle it, I see how you work, and I think when you remember that both of you loved each other enough to make this incredible child, then you start to think a little bit more about, okay, how can I ease the burden on my child? Sure, me and my wife or me and my husband, we didn't get along. And you know what? This ends here because we've outgrown each other. I think you have to compartmentalize in your brain a little bit and think, I've got to put my child first. As hard as I think that can be for some people. And it's okay to say it's hard. People want to be perfect and they want to say, I'm putting my child first. Sometimes it is hard.
Oh, it's very hard. And what I see as a lawyer is people are acting on fear because, of course, they're afraid. And that's going to be the primary driver, at least early on in any kind of custody situation. As a lawyer, our job is to really figure out what's going on. And one thing I hear all the time is, I want to do right by my kids, or I want to do what's best for my kids, which of course you do. Of course we all do. What's difficult sometimes, though, is really naming what that is. What does that mean? Because different people, different parents even, can see two different perspectives of what they think is best for the kids. And in fact, that's what causes a lot of relationships to break down, is when you've got parents that look at a situation totally differently and they can't reconcile it. And so that's what comes up a lot of times in these custody cases, where you have two parents who are looking at their children, looking at what they want for their children, and just see a totally different outcome.
Oh, and I've always said, like in my own life in general, I don't live by a book, right? You've got people that live strictly by a book. They're like, I've got to do this. You can't do that when you're getting divorced, right? There's no book. There's no pages to turn. I mean, you turn your own page, you write your own book in that scenario, but there is no reason to ever think you have to be perfect. Everybody's story is going to be different. And so I got some questions for you that I want to dive into, because you're the expert. And more so, you're such he's such a calming presence, like a good person. And you know how to help people. So my question is this. A lot of parents might have the question of, look, I've got a 13, 14-year-old. They are capable in their minds to pick who they want to live with. My feelings are going to be hurt, but guess what? They have feelings too. Break that down a little bit.
So let me just answer your question with a lawyerly qualifier here, if I can articulate my words, which is, what I'm going to say is what happens in most cases. There are absolutely going to be times where one parent is doing something that's wrong, does have a legitimate problem that creates a safety concern, creates a fitness concern that justifies limiting their contact. Those do happen. What I want to talk about, and when I'm answering your questions, are most cases where that really isn't the concern. It's more parents parent differently.
Sure.
So in those cases, and those are really, in my experience, the vast majority of cases.
By the way, way to mention the other ones, though. Good. I mean, that's great.
Well, because children do cause the most, I think, amount of stress when it comes to any kind of family law case.
Sure.
And so I don't want to minimize people's concerns and say, I'm going to give these answers as if the fears that you have can't happen, because they can and they do, but they are a lot more rare than what people think. And so the first thing is, definitely talk to a lawyer, talk to an expert, let them know factually what's going on so they can give you their best assessment. You can talk to therapists. I mean, we can identify the cases that are actually problems, where people are behaving in a way that is harmful or illegal, versus those where it's really just differing parenting styles or an emotional reaction to the separation. So my very long-winded answer to your question is,
lawyery.
Yes, there is something out in the internet, Reddit, I don't know, where age 13, 14, 15 is the age at which a child can decide where they want to live. And that's just not true, at least not in Florida. And the reason for that is a couple of different things. One, children sometimes, and I say this as the parent of a 15-year-old who I love dearly, sometimes children aren't always the most truthful. And it does sometimes entertain me when I hear these parents who, during an intact relationship, thought their child, like most children, stretched the truth, made things up. Well, when you're getting divorced, suddenly, they have the honesty of Job.
Suddenly they're Gandhi.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not always true. And also, children are very smart and they can read their parents. Mm-hmm. It's developmentally appropriate for children, but particularly adolescents, to play parents off each other and try to figure out, if mom says no, I can go to dad.
Yeah.
That happens in intact households all the time. So of course it's going to happen in a separated household. And so if you've got parents who are really trying to play into that, it's just going to magnify. And the last thing is, what we don't want, and this is what the cases say, and I think it's a good point, we don't want parents influencing their children as to where they want to live. You don't want to empower a parent to give their kid a brand new BMW for their 16th birthday and then turn around and say, well, wants to live with me. We don't want that to happen.
And at that age, that would entice a child. So my question to you, in short, is this. Let's say little Michael comes to you and he's like, I want to live with mom. I like her bedroom in her house for me better. There's no other reason. I just feel more comfortable there because I like my stuffed animals there more. You know, there's a real definitive thing, though, that as a lawyer, you would then say, all right, little Michael, I hear your what happens?
First of all, I'm not talking to little Michael. Please don't bring little Michael to me. Do not bring your child to your divorce lawyer. You can relay to me what they're saying.
You can knock on the door, but Jay's locking.
But no, because it's not appropriate. And they do not need to be.
You don't want to talk to little Michael? Okay.
You know, I'm sure he's a very nice kid. Please don't bring him to my office. But no, in talking to Michael's mom or Michael's dad, what I would say is, yes, parents parent differently. And parents parent differently at different stages. So, you know, parents really should be adapting as the child ages to what a child needs. You can tell a 2-year-old, do what I say or else. You tell that to a 14-year-old, they're going to hit you back with a barrage of questions that start with why and never end. And so it's not a great technique. So if you've got a parent that's more authoritative, still trying to parent, you know, a 14-year-old like they would parent a 3-year-old, well, then of course there's going to be conflict. Now, that's not, though, going to convince a judge that that child shouldn't see the parent, because at least in this state, our legislature has said that it is presumed to be in a child's best interest they spend an equal amount of time with both parents. So that's what I'm starting from when I meet with you. That's what the judge is starting from when we are going to present a case. And so if we're going to deviate from that, it's got to be something more than one parent parents better.
Right, there has to be a reason.
There has to be a reason. So, you know, if Michael's concern is
Little Michael,
that I guess Big Mike's parenting isn't meeting his needs. I mean, if that's ultimately what it is. Well, first of all, you got to figure out, well, is that really the concern, or is little Michael just trying to get, you know, a BMW for his 16th birthday?
Exactly.
You know, that's thing number one. And then number two is, well, what's really causing this conflict? Is it a situation where, you know, if dad could see the child differently or mom could see the child differently, is that going to improve the relationship? Or is it a situation where helping both parents see their relationship with the child from the child's perspective, you know, with the therapist, is that going to help solve the problem? I mean, you have to start with, you know, what's the solution that's going to have the most benefit for the child? Because that's really what we're trying to figure out.
And the child, you are honored in a way as the child. If you have opinions, you will, they're going to be heard. But essentially the law comes into play a lot there.
You know, what I think it's important for people to remember when it comes to the law, you know, this amorphous thing that we're talking about here is, we use the exact same rules, procedures for a family law case that a civil lawyer would use for a car accident. You know, you see the car accident case, they are litigating that case the same way that we have to litigate a family case.
Yeah.
Or we litigate a case the same way you would litigate a criminal case.
Yeah.
The difference, though, is in a car accident case, that's one thing that happened at one point in time, and all we're trying to figure out is who's responsible and who pays what. In family law, it's dynamic, it's always changing, and we're talking about children. And so it's not seamless to adopt the same rules of procedures to a family.
Right.
And so it's not going to be the magic bullet that people want it to be.
Yeah.
And so instead, my mantra is always, don't give me problems, give me solutions. You know, you can bring your problems to me and I'm going to figure out what the solution is. But, you know, we can't go to court and say, well, judge, here are all these problems, figure it out, because I guarantee you it's not going to get you what you want. Instead, it's,
Man, it's busy.
what's the way to solve this problem?
Yes.
What's the way to make this child feel supported by both parents?
Yeah.
And if we can start there, then it helps improve everybody's relationships, which is really what we want, right?
That's really what we want. And so I want you to look back in your camera here and ask you one more question, because I think this is really an interesting
Well, you're
one.
making me hold the stare an uncomfortably long time, but I'm ready.
You're pretty good at not blinking,
Okay,
you know.
all right. What you got?
Real quick, I want you to say in a couple sentences, when parents do try to one-up just to earn their love, you didn't do that when you were married. Don't try to one-up. Let the child feel you exactly as you were, because then they feel guilty. Elaborate on that.
So my best advice for parents, really, going through a divorce, is you have to pay attention to your child's experience, because your child is experiencing a lot of the same, if not all the same emotions you're experiencing. If you're worried about where you're going to live when this is over, the child senses that and is worried about it. If you're worried about how much money you're going to have to live off of, the child to some extent is going to feel that too. And so you've got to treat your child as a person experiencing this similar to the way you're experiencing it. Because if you don't do it, if you think of them just as a trophy or the rope of a tug of war, well then they're going to feel overlooked and they're going to feel like they don't matter. And that is the worst harm you can do to your child during a divorce or custody battle.
All right, well, I am Katie Garner, never made it to the altar. This is board certified attorney Jay Hinderlight, and we are Split Happens.
Come back and see us.